Welcome back to Open Bible, Open Life. I'm Kari Wilson, Communications Director here at Two Cities, joined again with Pastor Kyle. And Kyle, we're going to be talking about something really exciting today, our first ever fall conference, The Heights.
Yes.
And all I have to say is get ready.
That's how I feel.
So obviously, we have been pushing this thing any chance we can get. And it would shock me if someone in our church hasn't heard about The Heights. But let's be honest. I mean, people tune out during announcements. I mean, even we don't read all of our emails. And so we wanted to just explicitly take one last shot to communicate everything that The Heights is and how people can be a part of it and what they're going to experience there. And so we just want to start from the beginning. What is The Heights? Like, let's go back to the basics. What can people expect?
The Heights Conference is, we're calling it a conference. I mean,
Yes.
you can give it different names, but we've said things like we wanted to bring a retreat to our cities. Mm-hmm. When I launched this at first, I said it's one thing to get middle schoolers, high schoolers, college students to go to a retreat. It's harder to get your entire church or a large group of adults to go to a retreat. So we thought, well, we'll do the second best thing, which is we'll try to bring a retreat to our church. So really, this is going to be a camp-like experience. A friend of mine, he says he thinks one of the number one problems with American Christian adults is they stop going to camp. They stop having these moments and milestones and mountaintop experiences with the Lord. Now, I know that people can't live on the mountains. We don't live in the mountains. Hopefully we don't live in the valleys. A lot of times we live in the plains. But I want to, by God's grace, we want to give people a mountaintop experience. So the Heights is our attempt to kind of catapult and catalyze our fall by saying we strategically put it right after Labor Day for a reason. Vacations are over, school is started, weather is changing, people are heading into the fall. And so this is a big deal to be here Friday night, to be here Saturday night. We're going to talk about some of the things we're doing to make that easier. And then to be here Sunday. But it's like, I was telling someone the other day, someone's like, I might not be able to make it Saturday night. It's like, that's like missing the second movie in Lord of the Rings. You don't want to do that. Like you're not going to get the full experience. You're not going to understand Sunday without Saturday. And so, and even as we get into what some of these guys are going to be talking about, who we're bringing into town, the special elements that we have for every evening and morning, the way that we're culminating it all, you just don't want to miss it.
Yeah, this is really going to be, we hope and we pray and we believe, a milestone in the life of our church.
Yes.
Something we're going to look back and remember. This all started at The Heights.
Yes.
And so we don't want people in our church to miss it. To put it really simply, we're going to be doing a few things here. We're going to be worshiping boldly.
Yep.
We're going to be praying expectantly.
Yes.
And we're going to be encountering God in His Word through compelling speakers. Who are some of the people we have lined up?
Yeah, so I'm really excited. So both of these guys are friends of mine. We're bringing in, I'll name them and then talk about them, Mark Clark, James Merritt. They couldn't be more different. They couldn't be more similar. Yeah. They're the same in the sense that they love God, they love the church, they love His Word, they're great at preaching. Mark was, I believe, leading the largest church in Canada up until COVID and all the crazy there. But he is just a very, very gifted communicator. I think his church, don't quote me on this, but it was like 6 sites, multi-site in Canada, exploding. I mean, in Canada, unheard of. He's really good at apologetics, modern apologetics. He's really good at, like, I think he wrote a book, The Problem with Jesus, or The Problem of Jesus, The Problem with God. Yeah, thank you. He's working on another book he's got coming out. So he's very, very funny. Pastor Dave mentioned this one time that, and I'm sure Mark never talks about talking about this. Mark has dealt with Tourette's his whole life. So we talked a couple weeks ago about ministering out of your weaknesses and ministering in the midst of your weaknesses. And then Mark is just funny. He's dynamic. I met Mark when I was in Israel. So when Kurt Harlow was here a few weeks ago, Kurt and Mark are both pastors at the same church. They were both on a trip with me to Israel back in November of 2022. And I haven't laughed that hard and learned that much Bible at the same time. And so that's Mark. And then James Merritt, I just got off the phone with James yesterday. I was talking to James, and he is in his 70s, and he told me, I'm going to show up prepared and prayed up. And he said to me, he said, Kyle, I'm excited about the Heights Conference. He said, I was going to plan on speaking on this one thing. He said, but I'm coming. He goes, God put on my heart a message called Keep Climbing.
Man, you're giving us all the spoilers.
I'm just saying, that's all I'm going to say. But I told him, I said, I need this message. I said, give me this message, give me part of this message over the phone. But I just felt like as he began to explain to me what he's going to talk to our church about on Saturday night, I thought, I told him this. I said, there was one message for you to preach at Heights, and this is it. You found it. So
good.
I'm excited about the guys who are coming in. Obviously, we're going to be doing podcasts with them afterwards, learning and listening from them. They're going to be spending some time with our staff. But one of the things I love to do is leverage whatever resources and relationships I have to bless our church. So I'm excited to be sitting in the front row, worshiping boldly, praying expectantly, and myself just learning from these men.
Get to actually receive this weekend.
Yes,
What is that like as a pastor? Every single weekend you are up on the platform and you are preaching and you are leading our church. Like, you don't often get the opportunity to
very
sit
rarely
and sit and receive.
Yes.
What are you? How are you feeling? What are you excited about?
I'm excited because we may talk about this a little bit, but we took this idea or this concept from 1122. They do something called Saturate. And it's down in Jacksonville, Florida. And I had an opportunity in September of last year to go down because I was like, I think we're going to do our version of this. We're going to make it our own, not copycat, but we're going to do our own version of a conference in the fall that's dynamic, that's helpful to our people. And I was there for 2 nights, I think.
Yeah, what was that like?
It was incredible. I mean, I'm hoping to do a version of it. I mean, because what we're going to do for those listening and those in our church or not in our church, but we're going to have extended times of worship. We're going to have times to respond. I mean, something just happens, I think, when you show up, especially on a Friday night after work, and then you come back on a Saturday, or maybe you can't make Friday, you come on a Saturday night, you don't normally come, you reorganize your schedule, you get the kids in the car, you eat, you go with some friends. There's just something about both on a little level, I mean this, like the sacrifice of like, I'm going to do this, and the spirit of expectancy. I think part of the reason I'm talking this up, I really believe in all this, but I want people to come expecting God to move, expecting something big to happen. So for me, huge benefit and blessing. One, to spend time with these guys when they're not in the pulpit. And then I know these men, they're godly, and to sit under their teaching and preaching is going to be incredible.
It's going to be really exciting. But I think you forgot somebody. Who's that last guy?
The last guy is, me, Kyle. So I'm going to be launching, without going into too much detail, because we're going to share all of it on Sunday, that Sunday, going to be launching a brand new series and much more than that.
Yes.
And trying to culminate the entire weekend. I'm excited. One of the things I'll be doing this whole weekend is just hosting it.
Yeah.
So I'll be hosting them on the podcast, or I'll be hosting them during the services, or I'll be taking them out to dinner. And so I'm excited to get some time with these guys. And then, yes, it's an honor to end the conference and to do 2 things: to end the conference and launch our fall at the same time.
Absolutely. I joke. We're all excited to hear from you on Sunday. Yeah. We love hearing from you. And you've got some exciting things to unveil for us, but any hints that you can give us?
Just that we are trying to ask the question. We've been asking the question as a leadership team, staff, and everything. Like, what have been the greatest seasons in the life of our church? What has God seemed to bless and breathe upon? And it's not a formula, obviously, but there's a couple things that we're like, man, we think we want to take maybe I'll say this. My hope is at the Heights and through the Heights on Sunday is to take our church, you've heard this illustration with our staff, but to take our church out of a lake, which we're in a beautiful lake, and to move us into a river as we head into the fall. Rapids 5 River. Put your helmet on, grab your paddle. We're headed somewhere. And it's going to be adventurous and exciting and a little scary and all of that, but we're going to go somewhere together. So
and I think we can tell them this. We're commissioning our Lexington launch team on that Sunday. You're not going to want to miss that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we don't know for sure at the recording of this, but we have, it looks like somewhere between 110, 125 people that are going to be on that launch team. So we are very, very excited. I think it's going to be we keep using the same phrases. It's going to be a moment in our church when a bunch of people who've been in our church for months or years, I think at least 100 of them with their kids, stand on our stage. And we're planning on ending the entire Heights conference that Sunday by praying over them, sending them out and saying, hug them on the way out, shake their hands, because they're not coming back. It's this weird going out, because they're going out to go home. And in a lot of ways, they're going back to Lexington. All these people live in the Davidson County. It's so sweet. And they're like, we wanted to bring 2 cities here. And it's the culmination of so many prayers and so many dreams and so much hard work over the last 6 months that I'm really excited for that.
But these moments are what we hope that the Heights and future years continues to be about, these catalytic moments in the life of our church. And I mean, this is the first time we're going to be sending out an entire launch team to start a campus. And I think we're going to remember that for a long time. But that's not the only thing that's happening. So they'll have to come to find out.
That's right.
And also, I think a lot of times with events like these multi-night events, parents are hesitant. should I really come? My kids are going to be cranky, or I don't have childcare. All the excuses. Well, we are taking the excuses away. What are we doing?
Removing barriers, reducing friction. That's what we're doing.
All right.
No, and I've got to give Pastor Dave, I think it was his idea, but we were just saying so many people have families and in our church, and so many people have young kids. And one of the barriers is, I don't know if my kids want to go 3 days, or I don't know that we can find a babysitter, whatever it might be. And so, or I don't know that I want to bring the kid in the service. Anyway, all that. I'm talking about people with fifth graders or younger. And so what we're going to do is we are going to be doing movie nights, which I am so excited about.
Age-appropriate movie nights.
Age-appropriate.
With age-appropriate snacks.
Yes, absolutely. But without going, again, you got to come. You got to trust us and bring your kids. But the snacks they were talking about, the movies they were talking about, I think the kids are going to love it. I think the kids should come in their pajamas, make it easy on mom and dad, so when they're done and tired, you can put them right to bed. They're going to have full stomachs. They're going to have a great time. They're going to make new friends. It's going to be awesome. And then they're going to come Friday and say, let's go back Saturday. They're going to come Saturday and say, we better be going back Sunday. So, yeah.
Well, and Sunday they'll have normal kids ministry.
Normal kids
which
ministry.
Which is
no
also
movies.
awesome.
Yes, also
kids
awesome.
Kids leave wanting to come back, so not negating that. But after all that, why are we doing all this? Like, what's the point?
Yes.
There's so many Christian conferences that the individuals in our church could attend on their own throughout the year. Why do we feel the need to have our own individual conference for our church?
Yes. Great question. I think for us, it's like, man, when you asked me that question, the first thing I thought is, I just love our church. I'm going back to what I was saying, but I love our church so much that I genuinely look at this as an opportunity to bring in some of my favorite speakers from the United States to just serve our church, serves me, blesses me, serves our church. And then I think there's just something about doing something with your church family.
Yeah,
I've had the opportunity as a pastor and staff member of different churches and networks and stuff. I've been to so many conferences, and you normally travel and you're staying in hotels and you're, 7 people there versus, I think because of the size of our room and the size of our church, I think these are going to be, I don't want to oversell it, but I think these are going to be packed.
Yeah.
And I just think that it's going to be this. It's going to be such a moment where you're with your community group, or you're with your DNA group, or you're with, a lot of times conferences, husbands and wives can't go together because someone's staying back. You're going to be able to show up as a couple, and then you're going to be able to come back the next night. And the greatest thing is, a lot of times conferences are divorced. That's a strong word, but they're separated from anything else that's going on. You go to a conference, it's like, great, are they doing that next year? I don't know. Whereas it's like, this is leading us into the entire fall semester. Yes. So everything we're doing at Heights.
And much further beyond that.
Way
beyond
farther.
That.
Beyond that, yes. Everything we're doing at the Heights is setting up everything we're doing, another kind of spoiler alert, through the rest of 2025.
Yeah, 16 months?
16 months.
16 months, guys. We have plans.
We have a 16-month plan. You got to show up.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And you're a pastor with a 16-month plan.
I
That's
know.
saying something.
I know.
I'm sorry. Just joking. But all that aside, you talked about something I want to hit on, this idea of getting to experience things like this in your community and what that does. We want people to come and sit with their community group. Not only that, but grab dinner or before or after the event. Like, spend intentional time just fellowshipping, enjoying one another, talking about what you're excited about or what you've learned.
Absolutely.
This is how we want people to
show up early.
Conference.
When I think about the men's and the women's nights, one of the things I think about was being here. I'm obviously here early. And I'm in the parking lot, and people are bringing lawn chairs, and people are bringing snacks.
Playing cornhole.
Yes, yeah. So
Come do it, guys.
Yeah, it's like, come on. Like, we've got enough parking. We have the building. I would encourage people to come early. I would encourage people to stay late. I'd encourage men to show up with their, older sons and wives, or women with their older daughters, and just make it a moment. Like, we're just trying to say, I thought about this a while back, but, Christianity is supposed to be church-shaped. Not just gospel centered. And so I'm just this is a great opportunity for your church. I'm not trying to pat ourselves on the back, but we're putting a lot of work in to make it very easy for our church to have an incredible experience.
Yes, and it's free.
It's free.
It's free. Free 99.
There it is.
So for the longest time, we've talked about this a little bit. We followed this like simple church model.
Yeah.
From the very beginning, we knew weekend services, age and stage ministries, and the community group.
Yes.
Okay, why change the play now?
Yes. Well, great question. I would still put us under a simple church model. Although the bigger you get, the harder it is to do simple church. I was with a pastor, I think he's at First Baptist, either First or Second Baptist Houston. And he took it, it's like a 150-year-old church. His name's Greg. And he said, we were in a group of about 60 pastors. He said, guys, I gave up on simple church a long time ago. He goes, my church has a bowling alley. So
okay, I don't think we're ever going to have.
We're not going to have a bowling alley, but it's an extreme example. But he said, basically, there's so much going on. We can't be simple church. He goes, we want to be organized church. Well, we want to be organized church, and for right now, we still would like to be simple church. And simple church model normally means, you got it, but it normally means most churches have some version of this. Say modern churches, church plants, and it's something like this: connect, grow, give, serve, go, connect, grow, give, serve. It's kind of like. It's this, okay, you're going to come here, then you're going to do this, then you're going to do this. And it's all for the good of the people. And it all connects. It's all great.
Plan for the people.
And it's like, hey, the way that I say it at the Weekender is we are only going to ask you to do and be a part of the environments that we believe create the greatest spiritual return. So we're saying we know the worship service, we know the community group, we know the DNA group, we know for your kids the age and stage ministries.
And the last thing we want people to do is go and just be in their Christian bubble all week long. That means we're not reaching the thousands of people.
If you have too
much,
you're exactly right. If you have too much of back to the building, that happens. And we'd rather have people practice hospitality in their home than keep coming back to the building.
But why are we making some simple shifts?
No, sorry, I'm going to get to it. I know where you're heading with this. So here's an interesting story. So Eric Geiger. I
think it's Geiger.
Eric Geiger. Obviously, I don't know him very well. But,
best friends.
That's right, best friends. He wrote a book called The Simple Church, or Simple Church. He wrote it with Tom Rainer. We can link it in the show notes if you want to. But basically, I had an opportunity to hear him speak at an event, and this is going to lead back to Heights. And he said, there's been many critiques on the Simple Church model. It's, I wrote the book 15, 20 years ago. There's been many critiques. He said, the number one critique that I think is legitimate is sometimes in churches where they have such a good, simple church model. For us, it would be get in a weekender and get in a community group and get in a serving team and get in a DNA group, okay? He said, sometimes those churches don't value the isolated, powerful event.
Yeah.
And I think for the first few years, it's like, we thought, I'll speak for myself, okay, if we're going to do a men's event, women's event, it has to get people in the weekender or in a DNA group or and I value all that. Mm-hmm. But then we realized, wait a second, things like Promise Keepers, and people have different feelings about this, but Promise Keepers had a massive effect on people, and it was a one-time event.
Can you explain to people who might not know what that is?
Promise Keepers, and I don't even know a ton about it, but it was a big event in the 90s, maybe even 80s, but 90s, early 2000s. It was men's events. They'd bring in the Tony Dungies of that day, these great speakers.
My dad went to
every dad who was in church went to one of these, and they'd challenge you to be a husband, and they'd challenge you to be a father, and the critique on those events, rightly so, was, okay, gather everyone together for 2 hours, get everybody really emotional, and then
send them back without a plan.
Yeah, send them back without a plan. Don't help them. And so that's the critique. But then I can tell you so many people I've met whose lives they go, I came to Christ at in Anaheim at Promise Keepers 1992, and you're like, really? A one-time event you were invited to and it changed your whole life? It's like, so I say all that. Hopefully this is going to make sense when this goes out for people to understand this. We think there's something powerful about the isolated event. Now, Heights isn't completely isolated, because we're connecting it to the fall. But there's just something that God's word, God's spirit, God's people can do in, one moment, but 1 hour or 2 hour session. So we're looking for more and more opportunities to do things like this. We're looking at men's and women's events. We're looking at, when's the right time to do a marriage conference. We're doing this by bringing in the Lee Strobels and this fall, the Al Mohlers, and going, there's something about bringing in a certain type of speaker or doing a certain type of event. And we may do nothing else connected to it for a while, but we believe God uses those events to change people's lives.
Yes, and to draw different people than might typically be there on your Sunday. Well, you talked about this earlier. I think if we think about the genesis of the Heights, a lot of it started with that first trip to 1122. And I know you said it was incredible, but can you just tell us, what was it like to be there in that room? What did you see? What did you experience? I think it can help people get a picture of what maybe they can
that's great. Yeah, well, it's hard because I'll answer your question best I can. I only got to go to 2 of the nights. Okay. I've only been there one time I've been to 1122 about 4 or 5 times. Only one time for this conference. They've been doing this conference for at least a decade. Yeah. So they've built a culture into it. Theirs goes longer than ours does. Ours is going to be Friday.
Maybe eventually.
Yeah, maybe eventually. We'll see. But ours goes Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Theirs goes Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So they back it way into Tuesday. Yeah. Bunch of speakers. I mean, I actually was talking to one. I was talking to one lady. This is a true story. I'm talking to this one lady while I'm down there, and she said, she was like in her 60s. She said, I love Saturate. She said, I got sick last year at Saturate.
She worshipped so hard.
Yeah, she was like, basically, I came for 5 nights in a row. And I worship my heart out. And she's in her 60s. And she's like, there's like, the room seats 3,000. It's just, anyway, what I saw people, it's what I would say to you. I saw a spirit of expectation. Mm-hmm. I saw some unbelievably dynamic speakers that came with, because a lot of times what you do is you say to, I do this for a living, I'm a preacher. It's like, not all messages are created equal. It's like, I'd like to say every one of my messages is the same. Basically what we say is we want you to either, I want God to put something on your heart based on this theme, heights, like James Merritt, keep climbing. Or I want you to bring the most impactful message that you have given over the last few years. Mm-hmm. Within these, this is who our church is, this is where we are. And so you get these incredible speakers, then you get their lollipop sermon. In the sense of like, what I mean by that is like, you just get there like, this is it. This is what I am passionate to talk about. This is what I know how to drive home. And then honestly, there's extended, and we're going to do this, there's extended times to respond. Absolutely. Part of the problem with having multiple services, and I wouldn't do it any other way, because the advantage of multiple services is you reach more people. Absolutely. The disadvantage of multiple services is an inability to linger, to use a Shane and Shane phrase. To go, all right, there's unfortunately, usually there's 30 minutes or an hour in between, and we got cars in and out. And this is going to create some space where people can go, man, if we just want to stay and pray, if we just want to stay as a community group in the worship center and pray, if we want to sing an extra, if Donovan just decides,
if we want to have an Asbury revival,
there it is. Well, we told Donovan. I think Donovan. I think this is right. I think we told Donovan each night have a song or two extra. Yeah. Just in your back pocket. If you feel like what the Lord is doing is we need to sing some more, we need to come forward some more, and so we always want to be this, but we want to uniquely be sensitive to the Holy Spirit when we do a longer event like this.
One, I will say, I think the church leadership, the other pastors in the church, you guys are so sensitive to the Spirit. And I want to make sure that people don't hear the opposite of that right now. So much goes into beforehand preparing for series and asking God what he wants to do through them and creating places and spaces to make room. And all of that planning comes out of the Spirit, comes out of time that you guys have spent in his word, that you've sought him in prayer, that you've had really intentional discussions. And so with the Heights, we're just taking that to the next level. And I'm excited for people to experience that. We talk a lot about renewal and revival. And you were really clear when we first started promoting this and talking about the Heights that this is renewal. The Heights is about renewal. Could you just explain the difference between those two?
Yeah, and there are elastic terms, I think, that people use differently. But so, it's, you might see, I'm stereotyping, but you might be driving in the middle of rural America and you might pass a church sign and it might say, revival this week, Monday night through Wednesday night. In fact, years ago, I was invited to a revival by a friend and I went. And when people think of revival, again, there's different connotations to it, but I think the average American, when they think of revival, they think of tents. They think of lots of altar calls, and I'm not against tents and altar calls and different things like that. But we like the word renewal because maybe the way I would say it is revival is something only God can bring. And ultimately renewal is too, but renewal feels more like I can have a conscious decision in my own renewal. I can be like, Lord, I really want to be made new. Revival is something, I hope it happens. Revival is something that is dramatic. Even John Tyson, who was here. Out. Yeah, John Tyson was, here, and he literally studies revivals for a living, and they're very infrequent. And as far as we can tell, there's very little pattern that you can, prayer. I think would be desperation would certainly be it. So I think our focus is renewal. God may bring revival, but my hope is renewal. My favorite definition of renewal, I took from Tim Keller. He says renewal is when the doctrines of sin and grace become more real and personal.
That's so good.
I love it. So in this, both have to happen for renewal to happen. But you're maybe you're at you come to our Heights conference and something happens and you realize you're a lot more sinful in your marriage than you thought, and you also know that God wants to be so much more gracious to you and your wife or husband in your marriage, and you have a new awareness of your sin and a new hope for your marriage. That's good. That, I think that's what Tim Keller means when he says the doctrines of grace become more real and personal, that is exactly what we're hoping.
Yeah. And then you
happens.
have a church that can walk with you through that.
Yes,
That's so
yes,
key. It's
yes.
not isolated from the normal experience and expression of
Well,
the church.
and
It's an
another
extension of it.
definition of renewal, or sorry, another definition of revival is when renewal happens at the same time to a bunch of people.
That's good.
So, our hope is renewal, because I can't tell what everyone's heart's going to do. But man, if enough people experience renewal, that's when I think you start to get revival, and that's exciting.
Yeah. And we just handed out shirts to our entire church
I know.
that said, in Winston as it is
love
in
it.
heaven.
Yes.
And really the Heights is all about God, let's see that happen.
Yes.
Let's have this energy going into the fall where we're trusting in you and we're praying big
Yes.
prayers and we're asking God to move in big, bold ways.
Yes.
Can you just talk a little bit about our hope for that in our city?
Yeah. You ask the question just a little more specific. So I
Yeah,
hope
sorry.
for no. So for what we did with the shirts.
Why
with
are we handing out? Why
Yeah.
did we hand out these shirts?
Yes.
And what do we hope to communicate? And what do we hope comes from them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, obviously, it was a big deal at multiple levels for us to order that many shirts and to organize them. Thank you, Carrie, and others. Colors.
Barrett gets credit for
there you
all
go.
of that.
Yeah, for Bree for organizing it on Sunday. Anyway, it was a big deal, but we're not in the give out shirt business, obviously, at Two Cities. I mean, we're glad to do it, but we're in the discipleship and evangelism business, and so for us, it's like, man, there is this thing in the Old Testament where I call it a thing. There's this idea in the Old Testament where there are many times where God says, I want you to wear this, or I want you to put this on your house.
The
Or
blue
there's
ribbon.
all these tangible reminders. And so obviously in our
Stones
culture,
of
we're like, hey,
remembrance.
it feels like a shirt we wanted something that was that would remind us of the main message of Christianity in Winston as it is in heaven. That we're looking at the Lord's Prayer and we're saying, Lord,
Absolutely.
we want things to happen in Winston as it is in the kingdom of heaven. But we also wanted a shirt that actually people wanted to wear
Yeah.
and we're excited to wear it, and that wasn't too this is my opinion, wasn't too abrupt or intense.
Yeah.
I remember
And isn't about Two Cities Church.
that's right. Well, and I remember when I wasn't a Christian yet, and I was in high school, and a guy wore a shirt that said, "This shirt is illegal in 78 countries," and it was something like that, and it was like this intense shirt about world missions, and it was, and I was just like, I don't get it, So we wanted a warm shirt that might for the individual reminds me to pray, reminds me what my life's about, and I think is a very winsome shirt that people are going to go, tell me what that means. What does
Yeah.
that mean? Where did you get that?
That's good. I think it will
yeah.
start conversations. I agree with you with that. Well, with that, Kyle, thinking about the people in our church, thinking about them experiencing renewal, what are some of the ways that you hope the people of our church experience that at the Heights?
Well, I mean, it's the things I always say. I mean, when I think about categories, I mean, obviously there's a greater desire for personal holiness would be like, man, I just really want to be the godliest version of myself.
Yeah.
I want to be more like Christ. There's I always think when you're in dynamic worship environments and God's doing something in your heart, you start to think about other people. So we want to continue forever to keep the idea of that one person who's far from God, close to you. Maybe you invite them to Heights. Maybe that's not the right move.
Yeah.
But hopefully you're thinking about them. I think the other things I often say, I mean, we hope for addictions to get broken. We hope
Absolutely.
for marriages to get healed. We hope for families to be reconciled. We hope for people to get vision for their lives and vision for their future. We hope for people to be encouraged that, man, there's this many people in your church that showed up on a Friday night
That's
and
right.
showed up on a Saturday night. We're going to have so much time of prayer and response because we want to let people know, hey, we're here to pray together. We're here to transfer the burden to God together. We're gonna believe. If you don't believe, we're gonna believe God for you. If you do
There we
believe,
go.
we're gonna believe God with you. I just think all of that. I want people leaving. It's like we're going to take, I hope, the best. If those listening, we're going to take the best of our prayer nights.
Yeah.
We're going to take the best of our Vision Sundays. We're going to just take the best things that we've done in our church, and we're going to collapse and compact them into this weekend to launch us into the fall.
That's so good. And how should people prepare their hearts for this weekend?
Well, I mean, I think we're still working on the details. This may be out by the time this podcast comes out. We're looking at options for the church to, I was just talking to Pastor Dave about this, to come and to pray the week of
Excellent.
in the building. So there'll be more details. I don't want to say it right now because I can't remember what we decided on. We're basically trying to think, is there a couple times where we could open up the worship center for people to come and pray and just say, God, we just want to seek your face. Come by yourself. Come with with your spouse, come with your community group, and we're just going to be seeking God's face. So I think praying together, I think making it a priority in your calendar.
That's good.
Do not let other things, obviously, if you've got your 25th anniversary trip that's been scheduled for 8 years, that's fine. But just making it a priority, going, I'm going to go even if I don't feel like going. And I'm going to go even if I've never been to anything like this. And I'm going even if I think conferences are a little silly and whatever, and I don't know who this Mark Clark guy is. I would just say, show up with an open heart. So much with in regards to our relationship with the Lord, I think has to do with the posture of our heart. So I think come ready, come expecting, and be ready. Come ready to engage your heart, lift your hands in worship, as we've been saying. Worship boldly, pray expectantly. And take notes. And apply it to your life and talk about it in your community group and invite your friends and just be all in.
That's great. Well, thank you, Pastor Kyle. We cannot wait to see you this weekend, Friday and Saturday night and Sunday all day at our normal service times at the Heights. We are going to be worshiping boldly, praying expectantly, and we're going to really encounter God together in His Word, and we can't wait to see you there.